What's up, everyone? My name is Allison, and in this video, I'm going to show you how to automate your weekly waiver wire research for fantasy football. This is a workflow I built in N8N, and it integrates into Yahoo Fantasy to pull out all of your information about your roster, the available players in your league, your FAB budget, etc. And then it does internet research on your behalf to make recommendations for the players that you should think about picking up or replacing, the best available players in your league that you should submit bids for. And every week, it's set up to email you a detailed overview that you can customize. And it's going to tell you who the best players are that are available in your league that you should try and pick up, recommend the FAB bids for them, who you should drop and why. And yeah, this is going to be a step-by-step overview, so follow along if you're interested in building this yourself. All right, first we're going to get started setting ourselves up in N8N. N8N is a AI workflow automation platform, and you can get started with a 14-day free trial, start your account, and my workspace is launched, and I'm going to create a new workflow, which is going to be where we're going to be setting up everything today. So N8N works with the workflow starting with a trigger. So why is this starting? Is it starting on a schedule? Is it starting on a click, etc.? And then you execute a whole bunch of actions, and this happens through nodes. So our first step here is we have to add our trigger. We want this to run on a schedule, which is right here. I want this to run every week on Tuesdays, right before I need to submit the waiver bids. And I'm going to say when I want this to happen. So 6 p.m. for me. And then it's saved. You can execute it. Done. And then before we get any further, because we want this to connect to our fantasy football account, we need to set up the credentials on the fantasy football websites. My league is on Yahoo, which has a fantasy sports API, and it has a whole bunch of documentation that I just keep on hand because I often give this to like ChatGPT, etc. if I need help and ask it to help me figure out like why the integration is working or like what I can do to improve it, etc. But the first thing we're going to do in here is within Yahoo Developer, you have the ability to go in here and create an app. And this is going to give you all of the credentials you need to pull information from your fantasy football league. So mine is going to be called Allison Waiver App. Read my roster and available players. We can keep it confidential. We want to do these two, read and write and open ID, email, and profile. I went through a bunch of troubleshooting. This ended up working for me. If you add it as read and write, we really only need read for the purposes of the workflow today. But this allows you to potentially expand this workflow into like writing, like it could make waiver picks on your behalf. Okay, and then we need these two URLs. So the homepage URL is going to be what identifies your workspace here in N8N. So it's going to be this whole HTTPS all the way through to cloud. So you're going to copy and paste that into your homepage URL. And then the redirect URL actually comes from is going to come from N8N. So we need to set up the credential on N8N side. So if you go back to your homepage, you can go here to your profile and then add your credentials. So Yahoo uses OAuth 2. OAuth is a way to grant a third-party access to your data without sharing your password. It does it through exchanging tokens. Okay, so we're going to continue, and then you can see here that when we're setting this up, the first thing you see here is this redirect URL, and it says here, use the URL above when prompted to enter an OAuth callback or redirect URL, which is exactly what we need for the Yahoo Fantasy. So we're going to paste that here. Okay, and then this is good to go, so we are going to create this app, and great. And we're going to need the client ID and the client secret to set up the credential on N8N side. Okay, next we're going to finish setting up the credential on N8N side. So this stays as authorization code. The authorization URL is as follows. I'm just copying and pasting these in. You can find these in the API documentation that I showed earlier, but you can also just give that link to ChatGPT and ask it to pull out all of the information you need. And then we're going to paste in our client ID from here and our client secret. The scope needs to match what we told Yahoo. So this means, are you reading or are you writing? And after much troubleshooting, this is what works for me. And this just basically means that we can write, but it allows you to read and write. So it's like all encompassing. Everything else we leave as is, and then we can say connect my account. I have a new screen that is allowing me to agree to give this credential access, and my connection is now successful. And before I get too much further, I'm just going to name this Yahoo Fantasy Key so that I can find it later. Save. Next, we're going to figure out what our league identifier is and our team identifier is by making a GET request to Yahoo. And all these instructions, honestly, I just get from ChatGPT. Just follow the instructions. So we're going to follow these instructions exactly. We are going to do an HTTP request. The URL is going to come right here as recommended from ChatGPT, but I'll put it in the instructions that I attach. And then the authentication is the credential that we've set up. So we're going to go down here to OAuth 2, and then you see your Yahoo Fantasy key right here. And then we're going to execute this. And you can see the output of this call here. And in here, what we want is the team key. So write this down. The first up into the T here, this is the league key. And then this entire ID code here is your team key. And we're going to need this for the next step. Next, we're going to put the league and the team key into like a field storage node that allows the workflow to refer back to them at the very beginning of this. So we're going to add edit fields here, and then I'm going to call this keys. I find that labeling the nodes really helps for moving from step to step. So don't forget to do that. And then we're going to be called league key, and we're going to copy and paste that in here. And then we're going to add a second one, and it's going to be called team key. And it's the full value, including those second digits. Execute step. Done. So that information is now available for the workflow. We're going to come back here. We're actually going to get rid of the HTTP request because we just needed it in order to figure out those keys. We could get information for any week from our league, but we want to get the information for the current week. So we need to figure out what week it is. And that's what we're going to do in our next node. So once again, we're going to make an HTTP request. And this is going to be get league settings, the title. Here we go. It's referencing our keys here for the league settings, the league identifier. It's going to execute it. I didn't add my credential. Yeah. Now we're going to execute it. And now if you go down here, you can see more information, including what week it is. So it's matchup week 4 for me. Now we are going to save that current week data point using code. We're going to extract it from the output from the previous node. We're going to use JavaScript code, and you can use the code that I've put in the supported documentation here. So I'm going to just copy and paste that into here. And this is going to be called extract week. And if you, honestly, the way I did this is I can just go in here, you change this to JSON, you can copy and paste this input, and then you can ask ChatGPT or Claude or whatever to write you JavaScript code to extract the week, whatever data point you need. Execute. And right here, we now have the week, the league, and the team key, and this is what we need for all of our future steps. Want to flash back to the overall workflow right now to show you what we're going to do next. So now that we know the current week, our team key, and our league key, what we're going to do is call Yahoo again and ask it to give us all of the available players for that week in this league. And we're going to do it by position. So you can see these calls are all going to happen simultaneously: kicker, defense, wide receiver, etc. And we're also going to, down here, ask it to pull out all the information about our roster for that week. We're going to set these up step by step, but at the end of it, we're going to merge all of this information into one file that we're then going to simplify and then hand it off to our agent further down the line. All right, let's get our available kickers. So we're going to do another HTTP request. I'm going to be calling this just free agents kickers for identification. Copy and paste in our URL, authentication. Okay. And it's going to be this exact same link for every single one. You just need to update the position. So you can see in here, position equals K. So you're just going to update the code as you repeat this for all the different positions, W, R, R, B, D, etc. Okay, execute that step. And here is our output as expected. All the available players for that specific position type. Okay, and we can actually just go ahead and duplicate this for the other positions. So open it. RB, we're going to do this, and let's try executing it. Well, it's because I'm not linked up. So you see, it was asking, I was telling it to reference extract week. I didn't link it up, but now if we go ahead and run that, works successfully. Okay, go ahead, repeat these for all the different position types. All right, we've got all 6 position types added, and next we want to merge these all into one file. So we search merge here. and number of inputs is 6, and it's append. It just means it's going to be like added to the end of each file into one mega file. And we're going to go in here and take our merge, and we're going to pull this into input 1. So now we have one mega file listing all of the available players in your league by their different position types. And then before we move forward, we also want to pull out our information for our roster. So who's on our roster for that specific week? We're going to say, call this roster, and we're going to add in the code. And we're going to, this is not linked up correctly. Whoops. Get rid of this. This needs to be fed by extract week because we want the roster information for that week. Let's execute, and it works. So if you go in here now, you can go and open, and you can see a list of all the different players that are in your on your roster that week. I work back and forth on this code with a variety of approaches, and this ended up working for me. Let's see if it's going to work here. Great. And I'm going to call this assemble available players for agent. And then we're going to do the same for our roster. Code JavaScript. Assemble available, or assemble roster. And all this code, again, is located in my helper document in the comments here. So you can see how complex this is. This is all like buried. It's probably like a little bit more understandable. Look how much data there is here. So it would take a lot of compute for your agent to go through all of this line by line. So instead, we can go into here and we make it into a much more readable format. So it's just like a really quick summary of all the different players that are on your team. Both of these code blocks have taken our data and put it into a similar format. So now we're going to merge it. And here's our second input. And then as a second step, we're going to make it even simpler. We want to make this as inexpensive as possible for our agent process. Oops, not an HTTP request code again. So this code is going to process all of the available players, all of your roster data. All right, great. And let's check out the output of this. So as you can see here now, it shows you your week, your team, your roster, and then a list of all the players. And it's really just all of like the most simple information that the agent's going to need, like the name, the team, and availability type. And that's it. And then it can go from there with internet research. Before we get into creating our agent, I just want to call this, rename it, simplify all data. So that's okay, right. And now let's go ahead and add our agent. So we're going to search agent here. The way this works is that you're going to connect it to a chat model, memory, and any tools that it needs to perform its actions. And it's going to get all of your data, the simplified data, as an input. So the first thing we're going to do is connect our chat model. You can go in here and you can see all the different chat models that you can use. So you can go and connect to OpenAI if you like ChatGPT. I'm going to use Gemini for this. And if you click on it, you can see that you need to set up your credential. So you need an API key in order to pay for the Google Gemini calls that you're going to be making. So let's go ahead and create a new credential here. So we need an API key. To get one of those API keys, you're going to head on over to Google AI Studio. This is where you're going to set up your billing information to be able to pay for all of the expenses associated with API key. So in here, I'm going to create an API key, and it's going to be called delete this. So remember, so you can't access this later. And I'm just going to call this Allison's N8N project. Create key. Going to copy this API key. Again, you can go in here and set up billing so that you can access this as you need. I'm going to bring this back on over to N8N, and I'm going to copy and paste it and save it. That's it. So now we can go in here and you can see it works because you're able to go ahead and check out all of the, for this exercise, I am going to be using 2.5 Pro as something that's good at internet research, and you should play around with this as you see fit. And that is it. Then we're going to set up memory. So this is basically saying, save this information really quickly before you go ahead and email it to me. It doesn't need to be saved in a database or anything. Then we're going to add memory. So it's going to save all this information as it passes through the agent temporarily before it goes ahead and emails it to me. I don't need this in a database or anything. We're going to change this to define below and copy in this key. And that is it that we need to set up here. So now it has access to a AI model, it has memory, and it already has my input. And that's all I really need for this agent. You could also add additional tools. So if you want to make another request to Yahoo for some other piece of information, etc. And you can go in here and explore all the different types of tools that you might want to reference or might want to have this agent reference. So next thing we're going to go do here, though, is that we want to give it the prompt. And the prompt is something that you basically want to develop yourself for your own needs when you have the specific websites for fantasy football research that you like to access. So I'm going to copy and paste my prompt into here that I've developed over a few iterations of describing what I want to see in these weekly emails. And in this prompt, I am actually telling it to output all of this, the recommendations in HTML format so that I get a really nicely formatted email at the end of the day. So let's us execute this step and see what we get. Okay, awesome. The agent has finished running, and now I can see all of my in-depth fantasy football research formatted in HTML, ready for an email. So let's get that started. So we're going to set up here the output, and I'm going to search Gmail here. I want to send myself a message. So I'm going to send, create a new credential, and I'm actually just going to hit the sign in with Google button, and I'm going to sign into my account. Giving it access. Okay, my connection is successful. Now you're going to enter who you want the email to go to. So I'm going to have it be just sent to myself, and the subject line is going to go weekly waiver research. And again, it's HTML. And then the message is just going to be the input here, the JSON output. All right, we're going to execute step, and let's go see if we get an email. Node executed successfully. And here we go. I really need a new QB. I hope this overview was helpful to you. We've executed a pretty awesome workflow here to give us a whole bunch of internet research in our hands, totally automated every single week. Please subscribe if you are interested in stuff like this, and I will be happy to make more tutorials like this.